Good morning, everybody. My name is Ann Packham, and I want to welcome everybody to this virtual service through the University Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are a lay-led congregation if you're joining us for the first time. And everybody will be on mute at the beginning, but we'll have an opportunity to unmute you if you are sharing later on. And I invite you, if you are going to light a chalice during the chalice lighting, which takes place in a few minutes, to go and get that now so that you won't have to jump up at the time that we're doing chalice lighting. So before we sort of settle into our sacred space, we always have an opportunity for any committees from the church to share what's going on. So I invite committee leaders to either raise their hand. I can't see everybody on the screen right now. I'm going to try to fix that. So try to raise your hand virtually. I will start by letting you know as a member of the board that we will have a quarterly meeting next week, August 16th. Is it right after church, Martha, like 5 minutes later, or wait till noon?
About 5 minutes later, just long enough for a personal break and come back.
Okay, so right after service next week will be the quarterly meeting. It'll be short. It'll be obviously via Zoom. So please join us for that. Are there any committee chairs who have any announcements? And I'm trying to scroll through. I think I see Evelyn. I'm not sure which committee that is, but feel free to, let's see if I can unmute you.
Social action, I am not the committee chair because we don't have a chair, but I just want to make an announcement for social action for Seminole County, and I will stress this is only Seminole County. If you're in Orange County, you'd have to check elsewhere. But if you have your ballot and it has not yet been returned for people that have a ballot, if you go to any of the areas where they now have started early voting for Seminole County, if you go to any of those areas, you may turn in your ballot. There is, if you have filled it out and it is ready to go, but you haven't mailed it, you can go there and they will have a place where those particular ballots will be taken as if you mailed them. Not to go inside and do the ballot because that would be regular voting. But if you go outside and ask where you turn in, they probably have a box or some sort of arrangements there, but you can turn in your ballot that you have already received that would ordinarily be mailed. You can drop it there.
Thanks, Evelyn. Other committee chairs, can you raise your hand either virtually or physically? I think I can see everybody right now. I think Kathy Cowden, I can see. Martha, can you unmute her?
I did.
Oh, good.
So just to follow up on what Evelyn said, that's been the pattern and the availability in all of Orange County as well. It probably goes for all counties. You can always just drop your ballot at the actual balloting place if you have one that you intended to mail.
Okay.
So.
I see, thanks, Kathy. I see Crystal, I think, has raised her electronic hand. So Crystal, I can't see you on the screen, but I'm assuming you're there somewhere.
I am. Good morning.
Okay.
I am doing my weekly parent support group blast 9 p.m. tonight. I know it's easy to forget that this happens every week because there's a whole 7 days between one meeting and the next. We do have a new link and I've thrown it into the chat, at least the ID. It's also available on the weekly newsletter that goes out, the monthly newsletter that goes out, and it's on the calendar on the website. Or if you follow UUUF on Facebook, we do have the parent support group as an event, so you can get the link that way. So you can find all sorts of links everywhere, and I really do hope that those who may need or want some type of connection with other people who raise tiny or not so tiny humans to join us. So everybody's welcome, no matter the age of your children or the biological or unbiological connection you have to the things that you raise. So thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. I think Sammy has something to say. I can't see Sammy on the screen, but I'm hearing that maybe Sammy has something to say. Oh yeah, is that Samuel? Is that same as Sammy? Sammy?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me fix my
Shows up
name.
as Samuel on my screen, but I can't see you.
Oh, that's just because I'm not on camera yet. Because I'm not presentable at the moment. But I wanted to say that I met with Mystic Grove last week, and I had some really wonderful conversations with some leaders there. And I'd really like to pursue getting like a pagan affinity group started, and getting people together and talking about what our goals are, and really getting like a base of us solidified together with like a common goal and common understanding, so that if we were to pursue having a cups chapter again, we're like fully prepared for it when we do it, and we are ready to go when that time comes. So if anyone's interested in that, you can contact me. I'm going to put my email and my phone number in the chat. And you can also contact me through Facebook by looking up Sammy Conde. And I'm going to fix my name because I did not realize my legal name was on the Zoom. So
just so you know, Sammy, Charlotte has already approached me and Martha as the board about that. And so we've started a conversation about that. I was supposed to have brought it to the board meeting this week and I realized I forgot. But so connect with Charlotte if you would, so that you're all on this working together and not, that you're not duplicating efforts, I guess.
yes, for sure. Which is why I kind of like wanted to give the like, yes, please contact me call so that we could make sure all efforts were together.
Okay. I see Margie has her hand raised. Margie, can you unmute yourself?
Good morning. I'm here on behalf of membership. I see some new folks in our group today, and welcome as visitors, and hope you come back and check out more of our services, because every week is something different and something fascinating. If you wouldn't mind, it would be great if you would go to our website, universityuus.org, go to connect and contact, and let us know a little bit about yourself, and we can put you on our mailing list. Thanks.
Thanks, Margie. Any other committee? It looks like Roberta has her hand raised, so I'm gonna let her, and then we have Judith next. Hold on a second, Roberta. There you go.
We've had a wonderful women's group the past 2 years, and we'd like to continue it. And I would like someone to step up as co-chairman with me.
Or co-chairwoman.
Here, okay, chairwoman.
Thanks, Roberta. Judith?
Well, I'm going to announce the same thing I'm going to say during the Time for All Ages, but I'm going to say it anyway twice. Today, religious education is meeting in person outside the church. It's a drive up with your mask, 6 feet or more apart at all times, opportunity to get your blessing of the backpack's charm and have some ice cream and wave at one another. So you must come if you show up. So that's going to happen this afternoon at 3 o'clock at the church. Kids and students are welcome. Will receive charms. Ice cream is available to anyone that shows. You must not be expecting to go into the building. You must be wearing your mask, and you must be happy and cheerful and wave and talk and quietly, you know, not spit at one another. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judith. I'm looking forward to that. We're going to be there. Any other committee moments? I don't see any more hands, so I think that is it. And of course, if you're visiting and you want to, as Margie said, If you want to get our weekly newsletter called Notable News and kind of get in touch with all these different committees and know everything that's going on, just get onto our mailing list by going to our website and giving us your information. And there you go. So that's committee moments. Okay, so, oh, sorry, my Zoom just clicked out for a second. Sorry about that. So that's that. I think opening words is next. And my opening words come off the UUA website from Margaret Weiss. I need my glasses on to read these a little bit better. And this is very apropos right now in these times when we're not physically in the same space, and we're trying to, with all kinds of organizations across the country, including schools and other religious organizations, trying to figure out when we can be in the same space together. So I thought these were appropriate. The fellowship is not a place, it is a people. Our fellowship is not only a steeple above a tree line with streets and cars, rather it is people proclaiming to the world that we are here for the work of healing and of justice. Our fellowship is not walls built stone upon stone, held together by mortar, but rather person, linked with person, all ages and genders and abilities. A community built on the foundation of reason, faith, and love. Our fellowship is not just a set of doors open on Sunday morning, but the commitment day after day and moment after moment of our hearts creaking open the doors of welcome to the possibility of new experience and radical welcome. Our fellowship is not simply a building, a steeple, although we don't have a steeple, or a pew or a chair. Our fellowship is the gathering together of all the people and experiences and fear and love and hope in our resilient hearts. Gathering, however, we can to say to the world, welcome, come in, lay down your heartache and pick up hope and love. For our fellowship is us, each and every one of us together, a beacon of hope in this world that so sorely needs it. Next in our service, I believe, is the lighting of our chalice. And I'm going to get my little lighter here. And I welcome you, if you have your chalice, whether on the screen, like Judith has on her phone, or you have a physical chalice, to light that now. And I really miss having one of the RE kids come up and, you know, do the chalice lighting. I miss having little kids around. I just got big ones. So let's say together from our home spaces the following words. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share.
Yeah.
And we follow that with the affirmation of our congregation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. Well, this is a chance for us to welcome our guests. So if we were in the building, we would be standing next to each other, greeting each other, giving each other hugs, high fives. So give each other a sort of virtual hug and high five. We would also be sharing a lot of coffee or tea and conversation. We even sometimes share, you know, beer and stuff at our Oktoberfest and things like that. So we're missing all of that. We are a lay-led congregation, which means we don't have a called minister. So we work together each week to develop interesting programming. We have speakers from different faith traditions, from different academic organizations, different nonprofits. So we invite you to come and visit us multiple times because every week is different. And like I said earlier, if you want to get to know us better, you know, please fill out a contact information so we can be in touch with you and share our amazing congregation with you. So thank you very much for being here. And one of the things we do as a congregation to stay connected is share our joys and concerns. These are significant events that are taking place in people's lives that are either of great joy or often of concern, and we feel sharing them together magnifies the joys and hopefully reduces the burden of the concerns or challenges that we're all facing. So so Amanda, I'm going to let you kind of monitor the joys and concerns. I'll help wherever possible. But if you have a joy or concern, we ask you first to raise your Zoom hand and using the raise your hand option first, and then we'll go to physical hand. Our illustrious Director of Religious Education back from a few weeks away from us to do our Time for All Ages. Judith?
I am so excited to be back. Thank you very much. So as I said, I'm going to revisit the backpack blessing, which normally we do in person. And I'm looking forward to those of you who join us at 3 o'clock this afternoon at the church. However, for those who are not actually going to be there, I want the whole congregation to participate in it, because that is what we do in support of the students and teachers returning to the classroom as soon as this week. So the first thing I'd like is for y'all to think back to school. All right, you grown-ups who might not have been in a classroom as a student in a long time, I want you to think back to school. Think back to being maybe 8 years old. Think back to what it was like to go to class the first day in particular. Kid. Amanda, can it be a virtual backpack for those returning to the virtual classroom? Hold on, I'm getting to that for sure. So, think back to what it was like when you actually walked into the classroom, and the anguish and the concerns that you had walking into the classroom, and the excitement for some of us, right? Some of us, it was an exciting thing. For some of us, not so much. The friends we had, the teachers we had, some of them great, some of them pains in the butt. Think about what the things that made it a good experience for you, if you had good experiences, the things that made it possible to get through the day. Maybe it was for one of my kids, the gym teacher was a reason to be there. For the other kid, it was a reason not to go to school. Think about the difference of what it was like at the end of the day, and the clear delineation of what the beginning of being at school and not being at school was like. Now, think about all of that being initiated on a flat screen, and starting your day on a flat, and your school year on a screen, and what the difference is, and what that might feel like to not have all that interaction that you've had before. Some of it good and some of it not so good. The inability to walk up to the teacher's desk and ask a question when you have the question. The inability, even if you are in the classroom, to get close and whisper the question so that the whole class doesn't hear it. The inability to have control over when you speak, because the teacher probably, like here, has control over the mute button. And maybe the good stuff, the freedom to get up and run to the bathroom without being told, no, you can't go. Right. So think of all that, and imbue all the stuff you wish could be there for the kids and the students of all ages into the blessing we're about to do for our kids, for our students. So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to share my screen in a moment, and you are going to unmute yourselves when I tell you to, all right? And you're going to unmute yourselves, and each screen will have a portion of the blessing, and it starts in blue and it ends in green. So you'll know when you're at the last screen. It's about 5 screens. And I want everybody to actually read out loud, even though it's going to be a cacophony, one screen at a time. And I'll start each screen off. I'll start with the first word. And then when you're all done reading that screen, just stop talking. Go silent. Because it's important that our children hear that we are supporting them. And then when you go silent, I'll move to the next screen. And I'll do that until we get to the through to the last green screen, so that you know you're at the end. The last line on the green screen is in all caps. What does that mean when we see all caps? Does anyone know?
Out.
Yell. Say it loud. Say it strong, okay? All right. Let's see if we can make this work the way it's supposed to. You may all, let's see, F5, there we go.
these guys here. So
Blessing of the backpack.
All
when we have
On green, that's why it's gonna be.
from beginning. There we go. All right. All of you, you can be unmuted, but be quiet. The blessing of the backpacks, the electronic devices, the pandemic edition. 1, 2, oh. To the students,
Children, youth,
adults
attending
classes
and virtually over the next 4 years. Members of the
University Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, bless you.
Is this what it's going to sound like on the first day?
Bless you through the shield of your
computer screen.
Bless you through the containers that transmit your lessons.
That transport you.
We bless you with our
compassion.
Difficult days that are bound to happen.
Bless you with our cheers.
Bless you with our cheers.
All the successes we know you will have.
We want you to know
that where you go,
And in our spirits,
we are with you.
With spirit, we are
your
with
journey.
you. Support you in your journey.
In your journey.
as you begin this unique
academic year.
In this unique academic year, we, the University Unitarian Universalist,
Go with our blessing.
with our
blessing.
Go with our blessing.
Blessing.
A cacophony.
Was a cacophony. Children, students, youth, adults, we're with you.
Blessed be. Hilarious.
Thank you, Judith. Sorry, I made that comment that it's like a cacophony of all these noises, and I just hope that that's not how our kids experience their senior year of high school. But, oh, wow. Thank you, Judith. Now's a time in our service where we remind everybody that we collect our offering.
Bless you.
go now in peace. Go now in peace.
If you normally give your pledge or you give to the basket, we would be passing it if we were in person, but you can give online through the URL that's listed on the screen. And this can be for your pledge, but you can also give to the plate, of which 40% goes to a nonprofit that is chosen by the Social Action Committee. So I think, Martha, you're going to play some music by Lou Murray for a couple seconds while people get a chance to get out their virtual checkbooks or their physical checkbooks. That's okay. You can also send a check. Thank you very much. And for anybody who doesn't know, Lou Murray is a really talented musician who, for a long time, was the pianist at our congregation. And then she got a full-time job at another church, and we had to let her go. But she's still with us in our hearts. So, all right. So today's presentation is by two members of our church and our director of religious education. It's called Rooted, Inspired, and Ready. And these are all members who attended the virtual General Assembly this year. For those who don't know, General Assembly is normally a physical gathering of several, like a couple thousand, right? I'm not sure. I've never been to GA, but of UUs from across the country. And this year it had to be online. And so we're going to have Martha first, and then Chris Reed, and then followed by Judith Stein Farrell. So Martha, take it away.
Thank you, Anne. And I noticed that Lou was logged on this morning, so I'm glad that she was here to hear us enjoy her music. It really was beautiful. And we miss you, Lou. So, all right, General Assembly. I look forward to it every year. But, the University Unitarian Universalist Fellowship is the first and only church I've ever joined as an adult. It's been a choice I've never regretted. When I joined in 2006, I'd never heard of General Assembly. And when I saw my first program book for General Assembly, let's call it GA, in 2007, I remember being so excited by all the workshop titles and possibilities of what I could learn, and then disappointed that it was in 3 weeks, it was in Portland, Oregon, and there was no way I could let my boss know that I was going to go. So I had to miss it. But I went next year in 2008 in Fort Lauderdale. And I know at least one person who's online. I think Evelyn went that year. And Joey, we had about 8 people that went. And I've only missed 2 since then. So what draws me in? What keeps me going back? My belief that knowledge is power. So I go to learn about the faith I've chosen, its theological and social history, the mistakes we and our leaders have made over the years, the subsequent deep stretching and opening up to new ideas and ways of being that our mistakes have led us into, learning and sharing best practices with other UUs, being in community with others who are focused on building beloved community, and then returning to my UU home inspired and energized, and hopefully with something worthwhile to share. General Assembly was 100% virtual this year for the first time ever. I was originally sad. I had looked forward to being back in Providence. I love to travel, to try new restaurants, to walk in new parks, to talk face-to-face with other leaders and UUs, and not to be sitting in my own space with all the tasks I still need to do around the house calling out to me. They're a lot easier to ignore when you're not there. However, the reality is that online GA was pretty good. You could walk around during the business meeting without distracting others and still pay attention. You could sing along with the hymns loudly and even badly, and no one complained. The bathrooms were closer, and the food was better. And the virtual platform and the lower registration fee and lack of travel costs helped make it accessible for many more UUs. 4,933 people registered for General Assembly, and most of them logged on at one time or another. It was the 3rd largest General Assembly ever. Representatives from 635 congregations in Canada, Mexico, and the US attended. It's obvious that accessibility was a big factor in that for me. This year's theme that we used as our title was Rooted, Inspired, and Ready. Just immediately inspiring to me. Rooted in our faith, helping us build a strong foundation upon which to live out our values. inspired by the stories and wisdom of others, and then being ready to move forward in our congregations and communities, working together towards social and racial justice and equity, and so many other things. I want to tell you about 3 GA events I attended out of the 100 plus offerings, because you don't want to hear me tell you about all 100. Not that I went to them all. One of the first was Howard Bryant. How many of you, well, I can't see you all at the moment, but how many of you know who Howard Bryant is? I did not. He's a senior writer for ESPN and also a correspondent on NPR's Weekend Edition. His most recent book was entitled Full Dissidence, Notes from an Uneven Playing Field. The one before that was The Heritage, Black Athletes, A Divided America and the Politics of Patriotism. He was fascinating. The talk description said, in a time when authoritarianism is creeping into our lives and is being embraced in our politics, Howard Bryant makes us question the strength of the bonds we think we have with our fellow citizens and shows us why we must break from the behaviors that have become normalized in everyday life. Mr. Bryant gave thoughtful and detailed presentation on race and sports and race in sports, the differences in media coverage and perceptions, depending on who's writing the story, and the lack that he recognizes of shared common values in our politics. I feel a strong calling to listen to Black voices even more and to learn what I, as a white person, often miss and need to know. Next, I went to something that would help me with program planning. Faith Forward, a Path to Engagement. This workshop was led by the minister and leaders of the First Unitarian Church of Dallas. They have a self-developed curriculum that provides a path from visitor to leader in a program that fits perfectly with this year's theme. A path for engagement that nurtures our roots, inspires participants to contribute and give of themselves, and prepares them to engage sustainably in the world from a spiritually grounded, faithful place. The takeaways I got were UU is not interfaith, it's its own faith. And lifelong learning and deepening commitment plus outreach are essential to building community. Their program provides an excellent framework for program planning and membership. It's not free, and we can still learn from it. I'll be investigating that one further. The last one I want to talk about is settler colonialism and a history of erasure and exclusion. I wish I'd been a history major, but Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz is and was a historian, and she's written numerous books, including last year's UU Common Read, An Indigenous People's History of the United States. Her talk centered on how history can be and has been presented and written from the view of the victors, I guess you would say, to support policies and actions of the state. For example, calling us a nation of immigrants erases the indigenous peoples that were already here. And the doctrine of discovery, which I've heard about before and read some on, led us to the colonization of other barbarous nations, ones that were not as civilized or as white as we were, really. And even the Metropolitan Opera, she just mentioned this as an aside, was once considered communist because it included African American artists. There's so much more to learn and to know from listening to other voices, and we've got to be able to highlight them and learn from them. And so much of what we learned in school is either incorrect or at the very least incomplete. So I'm continuing to look through the 100 plus programs available online through the end of the summer. They're available to people that registered. So I'm trying to look at more and read more. And I'm sure I'll find more ways to engage with our faith and hopefully share ideas with all of you to help you grow in your faith as well. And I can't wait to register for next year. Perhaps we can have a group online, and perhaps we can be in the sanctuary and put it up on the big screen and be together. Maybe not in Milwaukee where it's going to be. But you know what? The food will be better. The bathrooms will be closer, and we can have great conversations in between the boring parts. I hope you'll go with me. Thank you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
And I hope my connection hangs in there. Can you hear me right now? I'll go for it. Like Martha, I've been going to GA for many years. It started when I was on the board as the secretary, the first time I was the secretary, a long time ago, and we had the opportunity to be financially assisted to attend. There was a recognition of the importance of that connection to our national annual conference of UUs, a time to learn, to participate in discussions and decisions, to be enriched and enlivened. My first GA was such a special experience that I've gone back whenever possible. It broadens my horizons, it fills my soul, and it renews my commitment to this religion and to you, my congregation. Having to change to an all-virtual GA with about 2 months lead time was certainly a challenge, and I think the UUA did a remarkable job. The workshops offered were diverse, plentiful, and well presented. There were glitches, but folks, for the most part, were very patient and understanding. I attended some excellent workshops, among them Why We Want and Resist Diversity. We want to look more diverse, but we don't want to be more diverse. While it may not be said, it's a sentiment often lived out in our congregations. Why diversity, inclusion, and equity matters to your congregation. Creating a listening community, introduction to restorative circles, and anti-racism as a spiritual practice. I was able to attend some of the morning worship services and one of the evening services. I participated in all but 2 of the plenary business sessions as one of your delegates, and I voted on behalf of you all. The annual WARE lecture, always a highlight of GA, this year was no exception. Naomi Klein, who is renowned for her work in climate justice, as a journalist, syndicated columnist, author, commentator, and the inaugural Gloria Steinem Endowed Chair in Media, Culture, and Feminist Studies at Rutgers University, boy, that's a mouthful, was the invited speaker. She was powerful and very inspiring. I'd taken 2 days off work to be able to participate fully in the activities that began on Wednesday evening and concluded on Sunday afternoon. Even though I was at home, I was exhausted. I was also filled with a desire to bring back some of my experiences to Triple U. Specifically, I felt rooted in my religion and what I had learned, inspired to share this important work, and ready to start something concrete at Triple U. We'll begin our first discussion of our congregational read of White Fragility later today. This will be a first of a series of books on racism, white privilege, history, justice, and equality. I'm thankful to be part of this congregation, and I'm excited to begin this journey with you. And I look forward to next year. Thank you. Judith?
So, you know, I'm going to start with something I've said many times here in Time for All Ages and in services, and that was actually commented on in our board retreat yesterday about perspective. Each of us took away from General Assembly something important based on what we brought to General Assembly, what our own life is, and what our own expectations are, and what is important to us. For me, I've come away from General Assembly, all the workshops and discussions about how, with a lesson about actually how perspectives shape our reality and the reality of those we influence and have influence over, like our children, like our subordinates. And my job here at Triple U, and in reality, I think in the wider world, my thoughts are about how to create opportunities to investigate and wonder about the various perspectives that we have as we encounter the world. So when I went to services and workshops and discussions at GA this week, or back in June this week, I feel like I re-encountered some of them this week as I kind of looked at them. I brought that sense of being with me into those workshops. So besides the plenary sessions, which are all the business meetings, in case you don't know, and the worship opportunities, which are generally so unique, I attended 5 workshops and the WHERE lecture, the night with Naomi Klein. The ones I attended were 1, highly interactive family worship, the FOS lecture on reflecting on the teachings of Indigenous peoples, a conversation on theological grounding for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And very recently, because as Martha pointed out, these are all available to those of us who paid to attend online so that we can revisit them or see the ones we didn't see. Very recently, on someone's suggestion, I went to one on a magic ministry workshop. Now, I'd be curious to know if all of you recognize the same a relationship between these workshops the way I do when I look back at them. And by the way, when I signed up for them, I didn't see a relationship between these workshops. But hindsight, they say, is 2020, and that expression is going to have a whole new meaning after this year. But as I look back, I see that they all provided me, just like I said, with a new lens to see these subjects through, and they provided me with ideas for how to communicate with y'all and our children. Perhaps that's because my theme is doing that, right? That's what I do here. So here's my quick takeaways. Highly interactive family worship is about shared ministry. It's about working with a clear worship team, program planning team in our case, people who have a clear message to share and working together to have continuity in the message for all ages and all hearing and learning styles. And there were a lot of great suggestions about how ministers and DREs and service leaders can work together to bring that all to be a full, rich experience. The FOS lecture on reflecting on teachings about Indigenous peoples spoke to how we need to own the truth of who this land that we live on, who it belonged to, who lived here first, and taking ownership of the fact that it was here before we were, and other peoples were here before we were. And it's not, the message in that particular lecture was not about reparations necessarily, but about acknowledgement and recognition, which is sometimes where we have to start. The Commission on Institutional Change organized the conversation on theological grounding for diversity and equity and inclusion. And the panel was put together by the Commission on Institutional Change. And so help me, I was trying to get the actual names of everybody involved, but Reverend Sophia Betancourt was there, Elias, can't think of Elias's his last name. Anyway, he's the president of Meadville Lombard. And that's funny.
Elias Ortega?
Yeah, Ortega, yeah. And I should know that because I used to be his DRE. So his kid's DRE, thank you. And it was about providing resources that our faith has to ground us in the sacred work that we do in inclusion, diversity, and providing equity in this world. The Magic Ministry Workshop wasn't a whole lot unlike the one on working with ministry teams, except that it was about using magic in the service. And it was basically an example, and I can't do it. I'm not a magician, but using magic as a form of storytelling and a source for getting the attention and relating and metaphors for how you share a message. And that's what I took away from it, for more methodology. Finally, as Chris mentioned, Naomi Klein was the Ware lecture, and it was a combination of a speech and a conversation between our UUA president and her, and it was a message of action. And it was telling us to get off our butts and take care of this work, this planet, and the issues in front of us. And that was the beauty of this whole GA experience. It was messages about how to do things. It was messages about how our theology is informed by our values, and our values are rooted in our principles that have grown since 1400s. And it was inspiring to tell us to do things. And we are seeing the fruits of that in today's workshop discussion on the book, White Fragility. So we're seeing very clearly, that is the most direct example of what we came away from GA with. And the rest you will see will be a little less explicit, but will work its way into the work we're doing with you. I absolutely know that when I go to the other workshops that I've got that are still accessible to me, that I'm going to find the same sort of message, because I come to it looking for language and tools and ways to communicate. But I know that if y'all decide to attend next year in any form as a group in our sanctuary or in Milwaukee, that you're going to come away with it with what you need in this case. What you're going to find important. And I'm looking at the comments in here, and the one from Derek saying that he doesn't believe the indigenous would have said own the land. And I'm going to say you're probably correct, but we need to take ownership of the fact that we are on that land that was indeed someone else's home. So perhaps my language is this is that learning curve, and I think that's an important point. So I encourage you, as does Martha and Chris, to participate in these experiences going forward. Thank you.
So thank you to Martha, Chris, and Judith for being dedicated and taking the time to go. I was thinking about doing GA this year online. I thought it couldn't be easier. You can just do it from your living room. And then, you know, your normal life just gets in the way. It was the same thing with Susie this year. You know, it's just hard to get in the mood when you're not there in person. But I appreciate that you all were able to have the attention span to actually go there and bring back so many, you know, good things to our congregation. So thank you for your dedication. And we're looking forward to all the great things that you've learned and bringing that to our congregation. Okay, so now is the time in our service where we extinguish our chalices. And my screen has gone away again. I gotta click back. So if you have your chalice, I'm gonna blow mine out at the end of this. So we say together, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And my closing words today are from Laura Thompson. Laura is a minister, or the lead minister at the Minnesota Valley UU Fellowship. Across the distance, the light from within me shines, sending love to all. Across the distance, your light is fuel that warms me and helps me keep my own light burning. Together, we keep the flame of community burning bright. So I think this is sort of intended, you know, for people that are literally really far across the distance. We're all mostly in Central Florida without a big distance, but sometimes the distance feels really huge when you don't get to see each other face to face. And it's, I don't know, it's been making me really sad this weekend. I really want to see people. So let's just carry that with us. And you have a chance to, I think everyone's going to get unmuted so we can have general chit chat and chatter for a little while. So, you know, give each other virtual hugs and high fives and hellos, and we'll keep it going for a little bit longer. But thank you for being here today, and join us again next week.